Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast. All right, Empjoyees, let me lay it to you straight here. Today's episode with Sumant Yerramilly is fantastic. There are so many valuable insights that you're going to be able to walk away with here. And I was really thinking, I was like, what are employees really going to gain from this episode? And the things that came to mind were really just around how Sumant has approached his entire tech career. He's been involved in tech in a number of different ways, from being a tech startup founder to product managing to so many other things. And I'll let Sumant walk you through all that. But I think when I was thinking back on this episode and listening to Sumant talk, the things that struck me the most was his emphasis on how it's up to you to translate whatever experiences you have into something that is meaningful to a potential employer. Sumant's story is interesting because while he was talking, he was describing the challenges that he had moving from role to role in tech and company to company in tech. And you would think for someone who's had success and been in business roles already in tech that this would come as an easier transition. And he himself faced some challenges with it. And it was really great just sitting back and finding the common truths there that apply to anyone, whether you have been working in tech for 5-10 years or you have never worked a day in it in your life. And I encourage you to spend time focused on the suggestions that Sumant puts out there in terms of how you position yourself when it comes to these roles that you're looking for. And as you go through this, I invite you to just pause it a few times and ask yourself some questions. Ask yourself, am I making assumptions as to what someone else might know about my past experience? Am I positioning myself and putting myself in the best way possible? Or scratch that, in a way that someone else can understand. And as Sumant would say, don't overthink it. Make sure you're asking yourself the right questions. I'm really excited because we're already 20 episodes into the Empjoyment Podcast. And whether you started with us on day one or you're finding this episode 15 years after it's been recorded, I just want to say kudos to you and congratulations on choosing to experience enjoyment through employment. I want to help you. I want to help you make the moves that you're looking to make in your career. I want to explore the possibilities that you have for your career, that you have for your life, that you have for this thing that you are creating each and every day. And I want you ultimately to experience a level of enjoyment that you didn't even know was possible. And I'm going to keep going. I want you to experience that faster than you would have thought possible. In the spirit of transparency, I've often sometimes felt guilty because when I transitioned into tech, it was actually a fairly short period of time between the time that I applied for a role and actually started working. And sometimes, actually quite often, I would ask myself, who am I to try and help employees out there that might have been struggling with this, that might be having a challenge and having it take months for them to be able to transition from their current world that they are in into this world of tech. Who am I? I was an actuary beforehand, working in consulting. How can I possibly go forth and add value in a meaningful way to someone who has had a completely different experience? And it's hard for me to put this out there for you all, but I feel like I need to because that there is my resistance right now talking to me. And what I like to do when I feel that resistance, when I hear that resistance, when I think about that, I like to acknowledge it, call it out, put it out into the world, which I'm doing right now during this podcast, and then banish it to the place where it belongs so that we can go back and get results. So with that being said, employees, who am I not to do this? I've had the experience of cutting through the extended periods of getting a job in this field. I've done it from a background that had nothing to do with what I ended up doing just a month later, or at least it wouldn't have looked like it had something to do with it on paper had I not told the story. And so I want to make sure that as much as you are listening to these episodes and you're gaining value from it, because they are really valuable, I want to make sure that for those of you who are ready, for those of you who have been there and have figured out that you're ready for the next level in your career, for those of you who are high performing professionals that are ready to say enough is enough and would like to get to your next level of career progression faster, I want to work with you. I have a few spots open for a complimentary coaching session with me. I'm going to be trying to do this as much as I can through October, but to be quite frank with you, it's not often that someone will take an hour and a half, 2 hours to just focus on you. And so these sessions are filling up faster than you might think. And I don't want you to miss out on this because I won't be able to do something like this in perpetuity. But I can right now. I can spend this time with you, focusing on your journey and translating these experiences that you're hearing from other people so that you can write your story, so that you can come onto this podcast and talk about the successes that you've had. So I want to spend some time exploring what enjoyment means to you and how we get you there. If you're ready for a deep, powerful exploration of your career and of your future and the path to bring those two things to life, then I invite you to come to enjoyment.com/coaching and apply for one of the limited complimentary powerful coaching experiences that I'm creating for my employees. To tell you the truth, it brings me great joy to be able to work with you. It brings me great joy to see you be able to realize your full potential. And that's why I'm doing this. I like podcasts. I enjoy talking. I'll even sit here talking to myself. But at the end of the day, I do it for you. So allow yourself to move forward in your journey. Allow yourself to make the progress that you're looking for and spend some time with me one-on-one for as long as it takes in a powerful coaching session, completely complimentary as a way of getting you to the next stage of your journey faster. That's enjoyment.com/coaching. Fill out the quick application there. And quite frankly, if you're not ready to fill out an application, you're not ready for this coaching that I have here. You're not ready for this experience because it takes something to move out of your default right now. It takes something to move out of the default life that you have set up for yourself. And I want to make sure that I'm working with people who are willing to invest in themselves enough to at least fill out this application and move forward in their journey. Yeah, felt good. Felt like I needed to say that. Felt like I need to give you all a chance to have this experience and to move forward in a tangible way. I'll see you in the coaching session, and I'll also check in with you after this amazing conversation with Sumant Yerramilly. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Enjoyment Podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you find enjoyment through employment. Employees, I hope that you are ready for an amazing conversation because we have Sumant Yerramilly on today's episode. Sumant, would you like to say a quick hello?
Hi, everyone. Excited to be part of this podcast, and hopefully you'll find this helpful.
Oh, we're excited to have you, and I know that this is going to be of incredible value, so thank you for that. Let me let you know a little bit about Sumant here. Sumant is a serial entrepreneur in the digital advertising and commerce space. He currently is the head of advertising at Edmodo, the largest education social network in the world with over 80 million registered users across 190 countries. He currently oversees product, go-to-market strategy, and sales execution. Previously, he was director of product at Unified and the VP of product at Compass Labs. He started off his career by co-founding Amp Idea, acquired by VTS, an out-of-home digital advertising startup based in Boston, Massachusetts. Sumant was responsible for developing the first interactive taxi payment and entertainment product, now available in over 20,000 taxis around the country. Woo! We have with us someone that is quite special. And I think, Sumant, this is great to hear about you and your professional background and your journey there. We'll be able to explore that a lot during this conversation, but we'd like to just get to know you. Like, who is Sumant? Do you mind telling us about your life, love, work, and passion?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in India until I was 10, and then I lived in Nigeria for a couple of years. And then I moved to the States around middle school when my parents actually moved to Michigan, and I moved to New Jersey. So I feel like I've been, having and then I went to school at Illinois in the Midwest. So having been to all these places, it's kind of helped round me out as a person. So I love traveling. I love learning about new cultures. I'm always fascinated by that. I know it sounds cliche, but it's truly one of my passions. And I think outside of, working on interesting products and thinking about new ideas, I think cultural exploration is like one of my big passions.
That is super awesome. Have you gotten a chance to travel anywhere recently that like really gave you a chance to explore that culture a bit?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I usually don't go back to the same place twice. It's very rare. I usually like to go to new places, but I've actually been very fascinated with Portugal and specifically Lisbon. Believe it or not, in the last 6 months, I've gone back twice. So it's a bit rare, but, really, really fascinated by the Portuguese. Love Lisbon as a city, really nice people. So if anyone is thinking about going there, would highly recommend it.
Wow, that's actually a huge endorsement considering that you don't go anywhere twice in 6 months. You've already made that happen.
It's really, it's captivated me, the city. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I'm captivated by your story, and I think that we're all here just really excited to get to know you and get to know more about your journey. But before we do that, I'd like to start things off here with some kind of success quote or mantra or motto, just to help us frame the conversation and get to see how you see the world. So is there a mantra or motto that you use to help you make forward progress in your life?
Yeah. It's a little simple one, but it's don't overthink it. I think it sounds a bit naive and simple, but I think that's what the beauty of that quote is we often, as we get older, as we learn more, we tend to overanalyze and try to calculate and, figure out every situation. What are the positives, especially you as an actuarial, you understand, you try to kind of predict every outcome. And I think it's important to just not overthinking it and just do it kind of thing. Be in the now. Yes.
Be in the now and don't overthink it. This is actually keep bringing the good stuff here. Cause I sit down and I feel transformed after every conversation. I'm like, yes, that's so true here. Let me ask you, Sumant, this sounds good here. And I think it'd be helpful to help us make this tangible by going through an example when you didn't overthink it. And, maybe you can walk us through a quick example of something that happened in your life where you put this motto into play.
Yeah. So, I think in one of my, most recent jobs, it's kind of a new job, and, there was a lot of kind of, hierarchy, expectations, a lot of kind of hand holding. And, I think quickly I learned, and, essentially I was hired to build out this big business unit, build out a sales organization, deliver all this revenue. And I realized I was, 3 to 6 months into the job, and I wasn't getting a lot done. And I just was kind of in this circular motion of I was working a lot, but I just wasn't moving forward. And I realized the mistake I was making is I was trying to overcalculate every single decision I was making to de-risk it. Right. So what that means is that essentially I was too afraid to make a decision. So what I would do is I would try to do 3 things, but I would do each thing 33%. So it was kind of you were kind of, partially doing it, but not doing it all the way. And because you're not willing to take that risk, I was sitting 3 to 6 months from now, not really making a lot of progress. And that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, you know what? In order to be successful, in order to kind of take this forward, you just have to go with that gut feel. And it may not work out. It may fail. It may backfire. It might, may not be kind of the best result, but it's you have to do it. Because I think the biggest mistake you can make is try to calculate every single potential outcome and spend majority of your time trying to have the perfect solution rather than just going with your gut and just doing it. That's what I mean by don't overthink it, is because I think we often, especially myself, having, done a startup early on in my career, I do miss that naiveness. I think there's something nice about starting a company when you're young and early. What you don't know can't hurt you, right? So you just kind of do it. You don't think about it. And one of the flaws I've realized as I've gotten older is, almost because you know so much and you've done all this, you kind of try to overthink it and you try to kind of outwit the situation. And that's where I feel really not overthinking it and having that kind of a bit of naiveness to it actually becomes a competitive advantage, right? If you talk to any entrepreneur, when they started their company, if you'd have told them, hey, you're going up against, 1 in a million odds of being successful, they'd be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do it. But it's that naiveness that actually really sets you apart. So yeah, I would say that's kind of where, most recently I felt like that was, it's ironic because if I was, when I was younger and working on a startup, I don't think I would have, had the same thought process of trying to, literally on a board, calculate the best outcome that would be coming out of this.
Suma, I appreciate you bringing that out there right off the bat here. And I think that this is such a great way to start things off because, as you were saying this, like, this personally resonates. And I'm sure a lot of employees, like, high achievers, high performers, they've gotten to know their current roles and their current careers really, really well. And they're used to performing really well. And now it's like to be able to jump into the abyss of the unknown, like you're going to want to try. I think the natural tendency is to try and say like, okay, how do I do this so that like I get in and everything's perfect and everything's lined up and everything's ready to go. And what's the least likely path to failure and all this stuff here. And it's interesting as you were saying it made me think of something I was meditating on the other day, which is like, I'm like, I want to regain some sort of like blissful ignorance. I think about like my college self. Absolutely. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's just like, just go for it. And like, and then, and you'll build the skills you need to be able to be successful or whatever happens. So you're sitting here right now and life is working out for you. You did it. Like, it's okay. So, I love that bit of naiveness there, going through. So employees, like, let's take this here. We don't know where this conversation is going to go. I'm going to adopt that if that's okay. I'm going to put that on right now and not overthink today's conversation. And just jump in here. I would love to, find out about your professional journey. But before we do, it'd be kind of interesting just to explore, like, like what product is and like what your role is right now, just to kind of give employees a picture of like what you're doing and how that fits within a tech company. And then we can go back and take a look at like how you got there through your journey.
Yeah. So right now, I actually oversee essentially the revenue of a mid to later stage company called Edmodo, and essentially I'm overseeing both product, sales, as well as how do we go to market and how do we actually market this in the market to our customers. It's not as product heavy as my previous role, but I've held director of product as well as VP of product roles in the past. And this is, again, it's a non-technical role. And I know we'll get into a little bit more, but I like this role because it gives me the ability to kind of flex all the business muscles, so to speak, because it's a bit of sales, it's a bit of product. Are you building the right product? And then it's a bit of, okay, am I actually, do the customers and the messaging and the marketing, does that actually make sense? And I think one of the unique things about being in Silicon Valley is there's a lot of high regard to technical talent and technical know-how. But what you realize is, this kind of, understanding of, okay, what am I building? Who am I building it for? Does it make sense? How do I price it out? Basically, product management is just as valued, if not more. And one of the things I do wish is that it is more valued, because it is a skill set, I think, that can definitely be, it can be learned by anyone. You are essentially, my current role, now I think about it actually, as we're talking about this, is essentially it's a mini startup entrepreneurial journey within a larger company. So, fortunate to have this role, but that's kind of what I do today.
That's awesome, Sumant. And I think we're going to jump into this here, but I think like even just hearing that it's a mini startup for you, I feel like you're able to approach this role in a way that like Sumant approaches roles, like I feel like this is like your way of going about it, where you're like, all right, we're going to figure this out. We're going to create this out here, and help build this out. So maybe you can walk us through from the beginning of your journey, wherever you consider that to be. Talk us through your professional journey and the different transitions that you had along the way.
Yeah. I mean, so I think the one theme that kind of plays, having had this role and the previous couple roles, I think the biggest thing to kind of that I've learned, at least as a non-technical person, product, being business analyst at one point, and business development person, is it's really, I think the core skill set that you need is taking a bunch of ideas, prioritizing what's the most important thing right now, and then executing on it. I think the mistake that a lot of people make, I think, is they come into a role, especially like something like product, or they want to do product management, but they don't really know what product management is, or they don't really understand it. Essentially, the entire role is, imagine you need to really put yourself in the startup shoe, right? So this is the reason why it's fun being a product manager, is essentially you are taking an idea and you're basically saying, okay, does this idea make sense or not? What is the market size? Do people actually want this? And then the biggest kind of thing that most people forget to do is, as a salesperson, I love selling before building. So for every job I've ever had, I always make it a point to sell, and then actually build and dedicate engineering talent. And I'll give you an example. So, and I've done this at a couple companies now. Literally, and this is more on the kind of product side, is I've literally taken product mocks, had a designer mock it up to a point where you cannot tell if it's a real product or a fake product, even gone to a point where it's, fake HTML, CSS on a web page. And I've gone on calls with customers and sold it to them, or tried to sell it to them, or try to see if this is something they're interested in. And that's the part that I think, is one kind of area where it's kind of an underlying theme of every job I've had, is selling before building. So I know there's a bit of a rant, but it's not, now I think about it, is the product management piece of it is going from idea, sell it first before you even think about how am I going to build it and what am I going to build. I think in Silicon Valley, we're a little too fascinated with building a lot. And, with kind of, I'm sure you've heard the quote, it's like, build it and they will come. No one is coming. No one is going to come. Let me tell you this, no one is coming. So I think the biggest kind of, and this is actually what has kind of differentiated me in a couple of the roles I've had, is I just have this, tendency now is where I'm like, okay, before I even think about engineering, before I even think about how we're going to build this, let me figure out in my non-technical skill set, how could I go sell this? Like, let me go hire a graphic designer on Fiverr. I don't know, pay him, whatever, create this mock of this product. Let me call up some customers. Maybe my sales guys, if I'm not a salesperson, maybe they can get me in some meetings and I can kind of demo this and kind of get a feel of it. And I know that's scary. I know that's not kind of what you would normally imagine as as someone who's doing product management. I think you kind of imagine more like, hey, I'm going to talk to engineers, I'm going to do that. But I think that's the most critical skill set that differentiates you. So my job at Edmodo, job at Unify, job at Compass Labs, even Amp Idea, my first kind of taxi startup, that was the underlying thing. I mean, my taxi startup was even crazier because literally, essentially for people who don't know, what we were doing is if you've been to New York, we were essentially building the TVs in the back of cabs with credit card machines. And at the time I started, I was only 18. I didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of financing, didn't have any kind of resources. My co-founder was technical, but at the time, I mean, imagine doing a hardware inside a taxi cab. It just seemed kind of crazy. And what we would do is, if everyone remembers, like in 2005, 2006, like digital picture frames were very big. Like they were getting really big. So what I did is I bought a briefcase. I put a digital photo frame in there and had a bunch of mocks sliding through this photo frame and went around demoing it to people. So people thought this was like a real, functioning product, but it was just mockware. But the whole idea behind that was that A, it would validate it. And then two, I didn't let my lack of technical know-how or financing stop me. I was just like, listen, we just have to put it out there and see what happens. Like, who cares if it fails or people don't like it? You at least give me that idea. I think a lot of people try to find excuses as to like, oh, I don't have this engineer or I don't have this financing. You just have to put it out there and see what happens. I mean, don't let it stop you.
Wow, Sumant, I love that. And I think that it's really interesting because I feel like you've actually given employees a bunch of different tools right now to kind of get started on like the product management and even just like getting some of their ideas out there. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to quickly distill some of the things that I heard here. Like if I was going to say like, here goes a roadmap here. What I was hearing from you is that, all right, hey, understand what the role is, right? Like you're asking these questions and you're making sure that you're asking the right kinds of questions. What am I building? What's the market side? Who would go for it? But then you also focus on selling before building. Do people actually want this? And it's not just not over analyzing it in your mind. You're not overthinking it. You're like actually out there taking action and saying, will you open your wallet and give me this, right? Is this something that like that's your vote? Your vote is your dollar. If I don't have it, not. And I think that for employees, for you out there, one of the things that Sumant mentioned was like, he didn't have to build it all the way. He got it to a point where he knew what he was looking to build. He knew what he was trying to do. And he found a way to like get someone on Fiverr for $5 to put up a mock-up and create what he had in his head so that other people can react to it and kind of use it, and see from there. So a lot of you may not have coding skills and you might be looking to build your portfolio or find different ways to like say like, I can do this job. Like Sumant has just given us like a really, really clear, easy way of just saying like, look, sometimes it's as easy as having a digital, we have our phones now, but like whatever it is, right? Find your digital frame and your briefcase and go out there and see if you can bring this to life, because it is not the engineering resources that are stopping. That's not the case. In fact, that's what differentiates you.
Yeah, no. I think also when people think about product management who want to get into tech, they get too caught up in the process. They're like, oh, I need to know Jira. Jira is basically a tool that we use to kind of prioritize. Or I need to know how to do Scrum, or I need to know how to do Agile. All that is just a means to an end. Ultimately, the reason that someone's going to hire you or someone's going to, want you to be their product manager is because you have that like gut feel or understanding, or you're able to go out there and really validate it and not be afraid. That's actually what differentiates good product managers from product managers who are too worried about, okay, do I have this certification? Do I have X amount of years of under my belt of doing project management or whatever? I think, especially if you're trying to get into a tech company, what's more valuable is the fact that you can read the market, you're willing to go out there and explore, not be afraid, and then come back and execute. So I think that's, I often talk to people where they're like, oh, do I need to get certified? Do I need to take this class, that class? I'm like, no, listen, you're too worried about the process. The process, everyone can learn the process. That's not what's going to differentiate you from a good product manager versus someone else.
Wow, Sumant, you just said something that just like got my, like, gave me goosebumps there, which is like, everyone can learn the process. Everyone can learn the process. You can go like that. That's not the hard part. That's not the thing that differentiates you. And I really like this theme of differentiation, Sumant, because quite frankly, one of my values here with enjoyment is like working smarter, not harder. And I feel like that is differentiating yourself and demonstrating your ability is like the quickest way to get a role in any kind of way. I went from actuary to HR and tech, in a matter of months because I was like, I'm not playing the same game that everyone else is playing. They can play that game. There's a lot of people playing that. I play my own game, and I am the best at it because I'm the only one playing it. If you want it. So Sumant, tell us a little bit here. So you had Amp Labs. You were walking around with the briefcase. You had a digital frame, and you were getting into these taxi cabs and starting to innovate from that perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about like how your journey kind of continued on from that point there? Like what happened after Amp Labs?
Yeah. So, after Amp Idea, we did this crazy taxi thing. And, the company didn't do as well just because, again, we were 18. We raised a little bit of money, but it just needed too much capital. And you're talking, this is 2007, 2008. So, startups were not cool then. There wasn't, millions of dollars flowing in. So we ended up, getting rid of the company. And I went back to school, believe it or not. Oh, I actually dropped out of school at that point, went back to school, got my degree, became a normal college kid for a couple of years, kind of just took some time off. And then I actually joined a company called Compass Labs, which was basically in the digital advertising space, really focused around big data and analytics. This is early in the day, so back then it wasn't kind of a buzzword yet. Yeah, so the way I got into that company is I believe I was literally looking up like cool companies in the like really like kind of naive, like cool startups in the Bay Area. I just knew I wanted to move to San Francisco. And then I got an intro to the founder of this company, and I was literally cold email. I remember I even emailed like the founders of Square. I emailed the founders of, I emailed Twitter. I literally was like emailing everyone. I was like, hey, just give me a shot. I'm from Illinois, blah, blah, blah. Finally, I'm getting introduced to Compass Labs, and I met the CEO, and he literally was like, okay, this is like a kid. Like, what does he want? And I just talked him through my story of like how I started the company. What did I do? How did I hustle? It didn't go well, obviously, but why do we fail? Which is really important to highlight. And then what was like the biggest thing I learned and took away? And this is a really early stage company, right? So they can't afford to have non-engineering talent. Like this is like I'm essentially like a cost. They look at me as a cost. But he kind of bought into that story. He was like, okay, well, this kid at that point, he was like, okay, he at least put himself out there, tried, didn't work out. I feel like he could, help us out a lot. And that's kind of how I broke in initially at the Compass Labs. And believe it or not, I joined as like essentially the lowest level intern / just doing everything under the sun. And eventually I became like the VP of product. And again, it was an internal journey where I just wouldn't stop learning, and I wouldn't stop like preventing myself from moving forward. So I didn't know any product management then. I didn't even know how to even build a product really, in terms of like the actual web. But I just kind of observed. I was very keen to kind of look around and see what people were doing. And, I was fortunate enough where the CEO, really believed in me, and he was like, you know what, let's give him a shot. But again, it wasn't because I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room. There were a bunch of people from Stanford. It wasn't because I was most technical savvy. It was primarily because I was willing to sell, and sell before build. And he really liked that. He liked the fact that, I was willing to go out there, hustle. I was willing to put ideas out there, get a feel of the market, and then we're willing to invest in it. And I think that's kind of what, gave him a lot of confidence. And eventually I actually ended up moving to New York from San Francisco because he was like, listen, you have this unique skill set where you're able to go talk to customers. Customers really trust you. And the intel that you could provide our company in terms of engineers and what they should build is invaluable. And that's definitely a non-technical skill, right? It has nothing to do with really your product management at that point. And I wasn't really even doing the traditional Agile or Scrum or any of that. It was much more like, I would say it was more like customer development, I guess, at that point. So that was where I was at Compass Labs. That company raised a lot of money. Eventually we closed our doors in 2012, 2013. So that was pretty heartbreaking. I think I felt worse about that than I did about the startup. Even the startup got acquired is because I really kind of put everything into that and unfortunately didn't work out.
Wow. So can we talk a little bit just really quickly on that there, just around like it not working out perspective? Because I think, there's the challenge and perception of tech as being like a risky industry, given that, you could be working at a place and then, they might have to close their doors, as opposed to, companies that have been around for hundreds of years and, are more, the industry is so much more rich, and you imagine that the company would stay around there. So, since you have this as part of your journey, I would love to just kind of explore how you dealt with it and how you think about these types of ups and downs when it comes to different organizations, and how you even make your decisions as to where you are going to invest your time and you have a lot to offer. So like where you're going to invest your talents when it comes to these to companies in tech.
Yeah, I mean, so two things. So one is, I think if you're going to go into tech, you can't be afraid of failure, no matter how big are the companies. And I mean, obviously, if you're going to Facebook or Google, that's slightly a different job. But if you're going into tech in general, even public companies often end up failing. So you can't be afraid of failure. I think the thing to ask yourself is that every job or every role or every progression that you take in your career, are you learning a lot? And more importantly, the other question that you should ask yourself is, are you becoming an expert or a domain expert in something, right? So I think the one thing that you often see with startups or tech companies is they'll fold often and they'll fold a lot, especially nowadays. I mean, now you have a ton of failures, but I think the way, and it might even be the case nowadays where there's multiple people applying for a job that, in fact, I see this all the time. There's multiple people applying for product management positions or, sales positions that have a lot of startup experience that have gone through that process. So it's not like it's unique or interesting anymore. I would say it's still hard. I mean, it's obviously tough anytime a company closes, but it's not like the differentiator it used to be. But I think what is a differentiator is how you talk about it, right? So like, what did you actually do? How is it interesting? How did it really impact you? And then two is if you were able to come away from that experience as some kind of expert, right? What is like one skill that you picked up? Did you really, really learn about that industry? Or did you become really, really good at like going out there and selling? Or did you really become good at, okay, I really went there and I really like learned how to, run an agile team of like 4 or 5 engineers. I think that's the more important part. So failure does happen. It sucks. Obviously you work really hard. It's especially at tech companies, you work harder than you probably do at, I guess you're, a typical 9-to-5 job, but it's how you talk about the failure can really change it. It can go from a negative to a positive. And unlike traditional corporations, startups do value failure, but not to the point where if you've been at too many failing companies and it becomes a question, okay, is it this person? Is he making bad pick or is it how it is? So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Cause like what I got from you was like the sense of like, almost like how to picture the career in tech where, like, especially if you're starting at a startup and such, where it could be, you're moving through your role or you're moving through your journey and gaining your expertise in a number of different places, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm getting into tech. I'm in this one company and this is where I'm going to be for the rest of existence. It's like the career path itself looks different because you don't know where the ups and downs are going to be. And that's actually quite common within the field rather than, feeling that it's actually a barrier to any future progression that's from there. The main thing, though, from what I'm hearing from you is make sure that you know what you're getting out of it and make sure that you are being intentional about like how you're building your skills and how you're learning, and then deliver that message clearly to the next employer that you're going to go to, or the next organization you're going to join. And in that way, you feel that they'll actually be pretty successful.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's actually where I see a lot. I think people join startups, they work really hard, and the startup falls. I often find that people don't do a good job of articulating what exactly did they do, or what were the lessons that they learned. I think it just ends up being this like kind of ramble of like, hey, I did this and I did that, and the company failed, etc. It's like, okay, that's cool. That's fine. The company failed. I'm okay with that. So yeah, I think it's really important to just understand what is that one message you're trying to articulate, and what was the lesson that you took away.
Awesome. Employees, I appreciate hearing this, Sumant, because like, I think at the end of the day, we're like uncovering what actually matters. You might think something matters, but like, this is what actually gets through to people when they're looking here. So, I mean, we were just talking about like the failures of companies. I would love to see if we can make this a little bit more personal though, for you, Sumant, because quite frankly, I think there's a lot out there that like you've had a lot of success in. But there's also like that real point of like some things just don't work out. So would you mind like walking us through a roadblock that you faced in your career, and tell us a story of one specific challenge or a difficult time at work that you had on your journey and the steps that you took to overcome it?
Sure. I mean, I kind of started the interview with a little bit of this, but I guess I'll use a different example this time. I think one of the big challenges that I've had more recently in my career is, and this always happens actually, and this is more kind of broader kind of career, but it's kind of relatable to how people want to get into tech. I think after Compass Labs, I ended up in this weird place where I wasn't a product manager, but I wasn't like a technical person, right? So it was like this weird, but I was a startup person. And I didn't really know what to do. And a lot of people are very similar in my position. They don't know, what to do or how to do it, or they're like, okay, well, how do I like break in? Because I'm in this no man's land. And what I ended up doing is I was like, okay, listen, so I don't think, I'm going to go work on a small startup idea, right? It doesn't have to be like a crazy startup idea, a small one. It's just because I'm sitting at home. I want to prove to people that I can do this and I know how to do this, right? And it doesn't, it goes back to that, let's sell before you build. So what I ended up doing is I came up with a small company that was called Coffee Match. And essentially the idea was that we would deliver different coffee from around the world. And it was really more of a marketing play. It's kind of Coffee of the Month Club. And the whole idea really behind this execution was I wanted to prove to people that, hey, I could deliver a product end to end, and I can actually make this happen. And here's how I'm going to do it. And here's what we exactly did. And I think the one kind of challenge there, I think, was, I didn't really know how to kind of go full all the way through in terms of 0 to 100. But I wasn't afraid. I was like, listen, whatever, this company doesn't work out and it does fail. I think people will appreciate the fact that I took the initiative. 2, appreciate the fact that I actually did put something out there, which wasn't, which I mean, I wasn't a hardcore coffee drinker, or I wasn't, a coffee aficionado by any means. So that's kind of an example of where, I was really roadblocked generally because I was in no man's land and I needed to figure out a way to break in. And my way to break in was, let me work on, I'm not saying it's going to be $1 billion idea where I have to raise a bunch of money. Let me work on something that proves to other people that, hey, this guy could take it from 0 to 100. Even if it doesn't work out or whatever it does, it fails, at least I could see it and it's tangible. Like I can actually see it. So.
Wow, Sumant, it's so interesting having this conversation with you here, because I can see how you've been so successful. And I think, employees, as you're listening to this, hopefully you're catching these themes here. Some things that are coming to my mind when I'm listening to this here is like that sell before you build. You're like, okay, look, I am going to make sure that like y'all are going to want to get by me. I'm going to do the work and make sure that like I can prove and demonstrate that like this is a product worth buying. I think that's really cool how you like took that approach there and like actually built a tangible thing without being asked. You just did it and you're like, this is what I like, let me go ahead and show this. And what really was really cool about it was you're like worst case scenario, and
right.
To me, that felt like actually de-risking it. You're like, here goes something that like, if it's great, awesome. I have a business that is making me money. I'm doing this and I'm having fun with it. If it doesn't work out, awesome. Like I've now shown and that I've like built the skills. I have another story to tell. I have another piece of experience that I can use going forward. So it's like either way, win-win. And like, I loved hearing how you described it that way.
Yeah, no. And, I think the important thing takeaway too, because I do meet a lot of people these days who like start companies and who want to do it because, they want to either get into product management. Again, I think it goes back to that thing. If you're going to do this, if you're going to go down this path of starting a company because you want to break into product management or want to break into tech, it's really important, again, if it doesn't work out, how you articulate it back to that person or whoever is going to hire you. Because they don't, I think what's happening now is you will start to see this trend of like, people are like, oh, this is like a fun hobby. Or like, oh, this is cute that you started this. Sounds like a fun side project. So you want to make sure you're able to articulate that in a way that they're like, okay, whatever you learned from this company or startup that you did, or it's easily transferable over to whatever the position or role I'm hiring in.
Okay. Thank you, Sumant, for like clarifying that, because it's like, it's really about the story you tell and how you're able to connect that past experience to the person that's sitting across from you or through who's reading your resume, as opposed to like, I checked the box, I did this thing. Clearly I can be a great product manager. It's like, it's still up to you to take them on that journey.
Yep.
Awesome. I also heard something here that was actually really interesting here, where you talked about this no man's land where you didn't have any like particular like skill set in particular. I think it was kind of interesting to me just kind of hearing that, because I think there's some employees out there that are like, oh, well, if I had a tech experience, like if only I had tech experience and I can get into the tech world. You had the tech experience and it still was not like, that wasn't the thing, it wasn't necessarily having lived that life. It was more of like, how do you position yourself going forward?
Yeah, how do you position yourself? And I think the other really underrated, not talked about kind of skill set or area to think about as you're thinking about employment is having domain expertise or like being really verticalized. I think that will take you a really long way in your career, right? So for example, I happen to work in advertising and I happen to know the advertising space really well. I know the ins and outs of it. And I think that's part of the reason why, people are like, okay, I want to hire him because at least he knows the entire space. So if you're going to do a startup or you're going to think about doing some kind of small project, keep that in mind, because especially in today's day and age where there's hundreds of product managers or hundreds of developers, the differentiator actually ends up being domain expertise or like domain knowledge. Because one, you get to you hit the ground running a lot faster. They don't have to teach you anything about the industry and how it looks. And then two, that becomes your competitive advantage because you've been doing that for so long, or because you've been thinking about that space, or because you've done something in that space. You exactly know what's going to work, what's not going to work. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. But I do think that domain expertise or domain knowledge does have a big for into a success of the company or not.
Oh, that's awesome. So like, if I'm getting you right, like if you've been doing hospitality in like law for a while, like moving over to a hospitality based tech firm might be like a really strong place for you to at least continue and leverage that domain expertise. Am I in the same role?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right.
All right. Awesome.
I think the vertical domain expertise experience, like even when I hire, I value that so much, is because that person understands the key players, they understand the issues. It's a much faster ramp up time.
Awesome. So employees know that, keep that in the back of your back pocket or even your front pocket to move forward. Cause Sumant's saying that's a huge differentiator. So let's talk about like these things that are different and like flip things around from, the challenges that you had there, and really take a time to look at something that brought you great joy through work. So, would you mind telling us about your proudest professional moment and the steps that led up to it?
I think my current role, I think my current role, kind of allowed me to learn, like take everything I've learned over the last 10 years from having my own company, doing product management, doing sales and revenue, and kind of put that all together where, when I joined, we didn't really have, an advertising, revenue channel. We didn't have, in fact, any revenue via this channel. So it's been nice to kind of see it go from zero to X amount per day to, exponentially grow week over week. And I think that's been one of my proudest moments. And I think it's because it's a bit of like, when I first joined, I was like, okay, before we do any engineering, let's like mock up a bunch of ads on Edmodo and let's go and sell it to ad agencies and brands and let's get a feel of what they say. People were like, okay, this is interesting. I'm like, okay, let's go build it. And let's do the product management part of it. Let's actually execute it. Let's get it out there. And then now it's finally, okay, now that the product is there, we've sold it, validated it. Now we're scaling it. So I think now I'm kind of seeing the fruits of all the labor of the last year or year and a half kind of come into play.
Oh, I'm so excited for you, Sumant. Congratulations. That's so spectacular. I love that. Like, it's really cool how you continue to hone that skill set. And now it's awesome because you're just having so much more impact with where you are in this role here. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited for Edmodo, and I'm excited for all the different organizations and people that get a benefit as a result of the work that you're putting in. So kudos to you, Sumant. Thank you for being you, and thank you for doing what you do. Because I just think that like you're giving other people a way to experience joy just through your role. So thank you for that. Do you have, if there was like a one golden nugget of like, or a takeaway that you would leave people with based on that this experience here, what would that be?
I would say, again, don't be afraid, don't overthink it, and sell before you build. I think I even did if people can look at this on YouTube, I even did a talk about like selling before building and how it's someone who's non-technical can really put something out there and make a big difference. So don't ever think that, not having the technical knowledge or not knowing a tech company is going to hold you back. I think especially in this day and age, there are enough tools out there where you can go out there, do it, and just don't overthink it. Because worst case, if it doesn't work out, it was a tremendous amount of tremendous experience that you had, and it's a good takeaway for whatever you do next. Awesome.
Wow. That, like, I will include that over in your show notes. It'll be right there over at Sumant Yerramilly, as well as at onenjoyment.com. And I think that I'm going to go watch that YouTube video because I'm taking inspiration from this, and I'm thinking about things in my mind too. I think that'd be just to kind of just continue to make sure that I'm providing the best value to employees out there. So thank you, Sumant, for that. Let's go ahead and bring things to present times now. Like, what do you have going on? What is one thing that really excites you looking ahead?
I think the one thing that really excites me, I think looking ahead is, I've had, I'm really excited about the current company I'm at, the role I'm in. I think I'm looking forward to, taking kind of everything I've learned to date, and working on something in the future. So maybe some entrepreneurial journey in the future. And I think it's kind of like the stars are slowly aligning. So it's exciting to see what happens over the next couple of years and where that takes me. But yeah, I think I'm glad I had all these experiences and all these different journeys. Been put in situations where I was underqualified, put in situations where I was overqualified. I think it's all now coming together.
Ooh, all right. Well, we're all excited. Please, Sumant, keep us in the loop here. Employees, like, we're hanging out in the enjoyment community, and I think like Sumant would love to have you there and just see how things continue to develop for you as you go along. So I'm at the end of the questions I had for you. I want to give you a chance, if you got any questions for me, to go ahead and ask it, and then I'll wrap up with just one final thought.
Yeah, I mean, what is maybe we didn't get into this, but what is one experience that you think, what is the most common rebuttal or most common issue that you see from employees when they want to move into tech? What is one kind of underlying theme that you often find a lot? Maybe I can kind of help answer that.
Yeah, I think the biggest theme that's come up at this point in the enjoyment journey is the belief that you have to check all the boxes, that like, and realistically that there's a kind of a cookie cut, like something that someone is specifically looking for. And those boxes that are, that they're looking to check are checked by, mainly through skill building. So it's like, I've used this program. I understand Agile. I've, done all these very specific things that you might want in your organization. And to me, that's probably like the biggest myth and misconception, that I keep running into. And I think that's one of the harder things to kind of transform in terms of the thinking process. And I use myself and the people that have been on this podcast as an example of people who come and found ways to translate what their past experiences were and make sure that they're able to communicate that over to potential employers. I actually think that if I was going to boil it down, it really, the aspect of it being like, hey, I have to check the box for all these like specific skills. And then, coupled with what you were saying around like, you have to tell that story. You have to position yourself. It's up to you to articulate why your past experience was important. I think that's probably the number 2 thing that I see where it's like, okay, I've done all these things. So check. Here goes my checklist. Employer, now it's up to you to just say, yep, stamp, he's good or she's good. Let's bring them in. And I'm like, that is, I'm not convinced that's the actual story there. The real story is where, how do you leverage those skills? How does that help you provide a unique value to people? And, I think that's probably the biggest challenge to kind of get into like, okay, how do I actually tell people and help them understand and demonstrate my value when it comes to what I've done in the past? So that's probably like the biggest roadblock and the biggest thing that I've been seeing. Is that in line with the question that you were asking?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I mean, I think also, people don't, I see this often, they don't actually practice how they're going to tell their story. Maybe people should actually practice, because I do feel like, as entrepreneurs, especially if you've done some kind of entrepreneurial thing, you tend to go into this like tangent ramble for like a while, which is great. I mean, obviously you're excited, you were passionate about what you were doing, but it's sometimes actually helpful to like write it down on a piece of paper and be like, okay, here are the 4 things I really want to get across.
Yeah, so I love that. It's not even just like what story you're going to tell. Like literally write the story down, know your story, and then tell that story.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that, Sumant. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to think through that. I'm like, what is it? Like I don't often get a chance to just sit back and say, okay. And now also because of this here, I'm like, okay, I think I know what I need to do now to kind of help people, because this is the roadblock that I keep hearing. So, employees, you're kind of hearing this happen here in real time. I'm like, all right, now let me see if this is something I can do to help you. But before I build it, I will sell it, if that makes sense. I'll go out and make sure we talk and make sure that what I'm looking to do to help you actually fits your needs, employees. So I'll be looking to put Sumant's advice into action myself. So then, Sumant, then I guess the last thing here is like, do you have any parting wisdom, parting guidance? If someone was going to try and take an action this week, is there anything you would recommend for them to do to start moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one advice I feel like people also don't do this is if you were to you don't even have to even work in a startup. How would you pitch yourself to me? Right? I think people tend to not practice that. I think especially if you're in the employment, if you're looking for a job, you're looking to transition, really think about what is a story that assuming that you've, watched YouTube videos around product management, you have a decent idea as to what a product manager does. I think it's kind of practice how you would, pitch yourself to me if we were in an interview or even in an email. I think that's really important. So
yeah, Sumant, it's as soon as you said that, what came to mind when you said, how would you pitch yourself? I was like, oh, this is the connection. Like realistically, when it comes to getting a job, you're selling yourself in a bit, right?
Right.
And I think this comes back to how do you tell that story, right? Because you have to sell yourself, right, before you build it. So you can go out there and build up all these skills, build up all these different things. But if people aren't, if you don't know what they want to buy, then you've built the wrong things, And I think I was hearing that with the agile and all the different processes stuff. You're like, I have to build my Jira skills. I have to build my agile skills. I have to build this process. You're like, I want to buy you as a person. Like, we don't even know if we're going to use Jira in a year from now. You don't even know if this role is going to be here in a year from now, but I'm investing in you. So sell yourself and work on that process, that story, and how you're going to tell that to employers, and then go off and continue to build around that as that goes along. Is that Sumant, I might be making a huge leap here, but that just seems to culminate a little bit. What do you think?
110%. In fact, just quick side story. So the director of product job I had at Unified, director of product. Okay. Before I joined that job, I had never really used Jira because in my previous companies, we never used Jira. So, and so the myth around you need to be a Jira expert to get into a high level product position is false. I learned Jira on the job. I kind of quickly understood what it was, but again, they didn't hire me because I was a Jira expert or I was a master of, figuring out how to, run Agile. it's because they believed in me, as a person, as an entrepreneur. So just a, anecdotal example of my own personal journey. So.
Ooh, thank you, Sumant. Thank you for all these things here. And thank you for taking us on your journey. You've been so incredibly kind with your expertise, your experience, your talents, and your time here. I just wanted to say thank you, and I wish you the best. Here is to experience and enjoy each and every day. Take care, Sumant.
Thank you, Nemo. Take care.
Employees, let me ask you here. Sumant gave us so much value through this conversation. And what I wanted to ask you is what was the thing that he said here that challenged you the most? What was something that Sumant said that really made you cock your head to the side or think, yeah, but that just wouldn't work for me? What was that? What was that moment in the conversation where you're could I do that? Is that how it goes? I want you to take the time to think through this here and figure out how can you apply this to your life? Because quite frankly, a lot of the times when our intuition, when our fear, when our hearts are telling us something and telling us, no, this feels wrong, that's usually a cue for us to take some time and actually spend some time examining that, because that might be the exact way to go. Just even before the call, I was talking to you about the enjoyment coaching opportunities and how I dealt with imposter syndrome, just trying to make myself open to help you. And it's because it made me so afraid to just put it out there that I knew that I had to do it. So what is that for you, employees? What is that for you? What is the thing that you have been overthinking, and how freeing would it be to be past that and on to the next thing that's on your list? Because that's what progress is. We are not about staying in the same place, and little by little, we will continue to make this progress. So I want you to think really quickly about what part of today's conversation made you think. And maybe everything in today's conversation worked well for you. That's fine. Then what is it in the last week, last set of enjoyment episodes that has made you go, I don't know, or has made you feel, as they say from where I grew up, some type of way, and explore that? You would think that that would be today's journey, but it isn't. Instead, we're going to continue down here and really take that just one step further. So what we want you to do is to come into the enjoyment community and share with us one thing that you are currently overthinking in your career journey, and the one action you will take today to help you break the cycle of overanalysis. So what are you overthinking, and how are you going to take one step today to move forward? It could be to write a plan. It could be to say it out loud. It could be to schedule some time to talk to someone to just work it through. It could be to submit that application or get someone to review your resume. There are so many small things that we can do. I'm going to toss out another one. It could be to ask one person in your life, hey, what are my 3 greatest strengths in your mind? Whatever it is, whatever you've been overthinking, I invite you today to let that go. Because you've heard on this podcast how we talk about the fast-paced nature of tech. And this is your opportunity to move a little bit faster than you feel comfortable, because that's where the fun is, and that's where the growth is, outside of our comfort zone. So come to the Empjoyment community. You can get to it by going to empjoyment.com/community, or just Empjoyees, because it's the home of where Empjoyees are. So empjoyees.com, or just type in the word Empjoyment. It's EMPJOYMENT, employment with some joy in it. You can type that word over to 33444 on your phone, and you'll get some instructions on how to be a part of what we have going on. It's more than just these discussions. We're asking questions of each other. We're getting to know each other. You're finding out other career changers, job changers, people working in tech, and how they are being successful in their career today and what they're looking to do to get to the next level of their journey tomorrow. It brings me great joy to have had this opportunity to talk to you today, employees. Here's to experience and enjoy each and every day. Take care.